Hello, this is Lisa, CEO for Sight for White, welcome you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 14th of May 2022. I am delighted to announce that we have been awarded some National Community Fund Lottery grant this week in order that we can set up an IT suite for members here at Millbrook House. The fund enables us to buy laptops and have on hand help through volunteers, both through ourselves and the RNIB, to help members gain confidence in using a PC. The software we will be using is the accessibility features that come with the PC, and we're also hoping to source sample copies of Jaw, Dolphin, ZoomText and other such accessibility softwares that are available. We will now be searching out what PCs to buy, what software to gain access to, and hope to have the IT suite set up within the next 6 weeks. The grant also includes funding for an OHP screen on a trolley, a very large computer screen and an OHP projector. This means we can project any of the computer screens onto a 77-inch monitor, enabling those who do have some sight to be able to look at the features more closely. Also this week we've been promoting our Hat and Sunglasses Day. One of the objectives of Sight for White is to educate people on how to avoid avoidable sight loss. Not all sight loss is avoidable, of course, and not all sight loss can be completely avoided, but many conditions can certainly be slowed down, and they can also be prevented from occurring by some simple steps such as keeping yourself healthy, keeping your eyes healthy, and going for regular eye checks to spot any problems early on. The Hat and Sunglasses Day is part of our primary school's education programme. So, on the 21st of June, Midsummer's Day, where the sun will be at its strongest, we are asking every single primary school on the island to play our avoidable sight loss video in their school to as many children as possible. And for those who can, they can donate £1 and they can wear hat and sunglasses to school. However, I would stress that the point of the day is to educate children on how to protect their eyes. This is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, wishing you a happy weekend and enjoy the sunshine while it's here.
Owners refuse to clear up derelict hotel and appeal against enforcement notice. From Island Echo, read by Chris. The owners of the derelict Ocean Hotel in Sandown have refused to comply with an enforcement notice issued by the local authority and will now be going to court to appeal against the order. News that the enforcement notice isn't being complied with means that the rundown site will not be tidied up before the July deadline, or anywhere in the near future, it seems. In recent years, the hotel has become one of the island's biggest eyesores after it was abandoned. It has been the subject of vandalism and arson attacks, including one last year which saw 100 firefighters tackle a blaze which affected all 4 floors. The Isle of Wight Council has now taken action after becoming aware of issues affecting the site since 2019, serving a notice to the hotel's owners, Phoenix Commercial Property Development, ordering them to clean the building up. The authority has previously said the building's appearance significantly harms Sandown and has been attempting to work with the owners to have the site tidied and secured, but says it has had very little communication with them. The notice was issued by the council in February, but came into force in March, giving 4 months for the work to be carried out. By now, 13 actions had to be complied with at the site, which included removing the steel supports from the former entrance canopy fronting the esplanade, cutting vegetation down to ground level, removing the waste and applying a suitable weed killer, removing all building materials, litter and vegetation across the site and on the access steps and boundary walls, cutting back hedgerow, removing trailing ivy, repairing boundary fencing next to the high street, cleaning all windows and door glass panes fronting the high street, cleaning the door and window canopies serving the main entrance and first floor windows of the King's Bar. By 11th of July, the council needed to see the hotel's high street frontage cleaned and then any flaking paint or defective reader removed. However, the owners have now appealed the notice, effectively pausing it. Any work on the site will now not happen until the appeal has been determined. An initial hearing will be heard at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on the 20th of May. Should the council be successful in defending its serving of the notice, the court would confirm updated compliance dates. A council spokesperson said the authority does have the power to undertake the clean-up work itself and recover the costs from the landowner, but it can only be done after the notice has expired. It does not relate, though, to securing the site, so the council is investigating whether other powers to do so can be found under the Building Act.
BBC to film in Bembridge as community celebrate Jubilee. From the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Susan. The BBC will be filming in Bembridge next week as the community celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee with a variety of local activities. On Monday the 16th of May, the BBC will film children from Bembridge Church of England Primary School preparing for the Crown and Tiara competition. Scouts from 1st Bembridge Troop, 2 WIs who are organising special Jubilee goodie bags to give to residents of care homes, and other Jubilee organisers such as the parish councillor Lady Bazin and Beacon organiser Andrew Holman. The footage will be shown as part of the Jubilee Beacon lighting programme on Thursday the 2nd of June, where more than 1,500 beacons will be lit across the United Kingdom, Channel Islands, UK overseas territories and in each of the capital cities of the Commonwealth. Beacon organisers in Bembridge have been given a special dispensation by the Queen's Jubilee Pageant Master, Bruno Peake, to light their beacon 30 minutes early at 9:15 to enable to be filmed and uploaded in time for the national and Commonwealth coverage at 9:45. The beacon at Culver Down is of historic significance, being one of the main beacons used to warn off the Spanish Armada in 1588. When a fleet of 130 Spanish warships sailed to try and invade England and overthrow Queen Elizabeth I. When spotted, these beacons, manned by full-time watchers, were lit one after the other to send the warning signal of invasion to London. The current Culver beacon at the tip of the National Trust land above the old gun emplacements is believed to have been installed for the Queen's first Jubilee event in 1977. It has been used for anniversaries and celebrating the winter solstice ever since. Sadly, the ravages of the salt-laden southwesterlies hitting the Downs for the past 50 years have taken their toll, and the whole top of the post and bottom of the basket needed replacing. It has now been totally refurbished and reinstalled on Culver Down, thanks to the generosity of Kevin Coghlan Transport, the Forge at Cowes and Dave the Harbour Welder. The evening starts at 8:45 p.m. with the especially appointed for the day, Bembridge Town Crier Robert Barnes, in full Scottish regalia, undertaking the royal proclamation. This is followed by local GP Dr. Cooney, also clad in tartan, playing the especially commissioned piece, Du Rignay. A unique bugle call, Majesty, played by Irene Burrow, will herald the beacon lighting ceremony for the BBC and the blessing of the Jubilee event by the Reverend Steve Dougherty. For the lighting itself, Deputy Lord Lieutenant Caroline Peel will be joined by a local scout chosen for their outstanding community work. They will light the torch that will be stretched up to the beacon at 9:15. This will be accompanied by a local group, the Shiners, singing A Life Lived with Grace. Following the lighting of the ceremony cutting of the beacon tart by the Deputy Lord Lieutenant, this will be baked to the Jubilee recipe for English tarts by the Culver Haven Inn. The tarts, 7 in total, will then be cut into 10 pieces, representing the 70 years of the Queen's reign, and will be handed out to people on the night. The 4 days of the Jubilee are packed with other events, including a street fair on Thursday afternoon, open gardens, craft fair, church flower festival, concerts, the Bembridge Burlesque dancers at the Village Inn, a harbour day on the Saturday with parade of Bembridge Scours and various children's games and activities, as well as the chance to visit a houseboat for a cup of tea to watch the boats go by. To catch up on event details and times, please see the Bembridge Community Notice Board on Facebook or on the Parish Council website.
This is Michael reading an article from On the White. Demolition begins on former Gaiety Amusements arcade as plans for stunning new home move a step closer. Work is underway to peel back the layers of the former amusement arcade on Ventnor's seafront, with the hopes of retaining the original cast iron. If you've been down to Ventnor seafront over the last couple of weeks, you would have seen the demolition of the former Gaiety Amusement arcade has begun. The original plans were to demolish the entire structure and rebuild from scratch, but the developer says that after analysis of the existing structure, it's become apparent that significant elements of the historic building fabric and structure have remained intact, so it's possible the cast iron pillars and dome frame could be retained and built round. Ventnor's Deputy Mayor, Councillor Steph Toogood, explains, investigation of the stability and condition of the original cast iron frame of the Gaiety has begun. The first task for John Peck Construction Limited is to demolish parts of the building to expose the steel structure to the dome to see if it can be refurbished and reused. The fun temporary hoarding by local artist Steve Unknown is to be retained during construction. Councillor Toogood added, I believe that the image of the new dwelling shows that the architects have designed a new building using the historical features of the original Gaiety. The heritage appraisal document on the council's planning portal shows historic images of the venue during its heyday. They give a sense of how close the new designs are to this heritage asset. You can see the plans and more detail by visiting the application on the council's planning portal.
This is Patrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Tomato store on Bridlesford Farm recognised as demand for local produce increases. Shoppers are reducing their carbon footprint by buying 40% more local products from a regional cooperative than 5 years ago. The figures have been released by Southern Co-op as it celebrates a milestone anniversary for its local food and drink range, 15 years since Local Flavours was first launched on the Isle of Wight. With 8 convenience stores on the island and a number of local producers, the Local Flavours team paid a visit to 2 producers last week to recognise the hard work which went on into making this possible. The tomato store on Bridlesford Farm and Dairy. Samantha Blake, sales accountant manager at the tomato store, said, Southern Co-op is a champion of local produce and working closely with smaller business to support their growth and showcasing the products to a wider audience. The tomato store is privileged to be a long-term partner, and not only are we able to supply our produce through the branches, but have had first-hand experience of the positive impact Southern Co-op has in supporting the communities around its branches. Southern Co-op's Local Flavours range was first introduced in 2007 on the Isle of Wight and supports farmers and producers, bringing the best local food and drink from across southern England to its convenience stores. It currently includes around 2,000 products from more than 200 suppliers. In 2021, there were more than 3.5 million products sold from its local flavours range, a 40% increase from just over 2.5 million in 2017. Southern Co-op's partnership with Bridlesford Farm Dairy has provided some local retail outlets for products from their pedigree Guernsey cows after it became unsustainable for it to be shipped off the island. Paul Griffin, the fourth generation of the Griffin family to run the farm, said, "Working with Southern Co-op has meant a lot to us at Bridlesford Lodge Farm. The local flavours aspect of their business has benefited many smaller farmers and suppliers, but also enabled local people to support their local economy and the local businesses that allow their communities to thrive."
Girl Guiding members set to light 70 beacons to celebrate Queen's Platinum Jubilee. From Island Echo, read by Chris. Girl Guiding members on the Isle of Wight will join hundreds of other Girl Guiding members across the UK in lighting beacons to celebrate Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee on Thursday the 2nd of June. These beacon lighting events will be held in selected areas across the country, with the island chosen to host one. Some events, including here on the Isle of Wight, will be exclusive to Girl Guiding members, and we'll see girls, leaders from the local community come together to enjoy a special evening of Jubilee celebrations. Other events in the UK will start off in the early evening with treasure hunts or with attendees having the opportunity to create their very own Jubilee crown, whilst more will enjoy a royal barbecue banquet before the beacon lighting. Plans for the island event are underway and all members eligible to attend will receive an invitation. Some 1,500 Platinum Jubilee beacons are set to be lit across the UK and the Commonwealth, with a principal beacon to be lit at Buckingham Palace. Anne Watson, Girl Guiding leader in the West Wight, says, "We're all really looking forward to coming together with fellow Girl Guiding members to be a part of the upcoming Jubilee Beacon celebrations. The Queen has a long history with Girl Guiding, as a guide herself and as our patron, making this historic celebration feel that extra bit special. Girl Guiding is offering lots of ways for its members to join in the fun and celebrate the special occasion. Many on the island have already been involved in the first wave of tree planting as part of the Queen's Green Canopy initiative. The charity has a number of specially created Jubilee activities girls can do in their unit meetings, including building an edible campfire for rainbows, a crown challenge for brownies, a Buckingham Palace obstacle course for guides, and a one-match beacon challenge for rangers. Girl Guiding and Scouts joined forces to create a specially designed woven commemorative badge boasting 7 sides to represent the 7 decades of the Queen's reign and 70 dots in Girl Guiding's iconic blue and Scouts purple to represent the linked history of the two organisations. The badge also features the Queen's official Jubilee emblem, the Girl Guiding Treefold and Scouts Fleur-de-Lis. In addition, the charity has launched a metal commemorative pin badge featuring 7 diamonds alongside 63 individual spokes to represent the Queen's time on the throne. The Queen has a long-standing personal history with Girl Guiding, first joining as a guide in 1937 at 11 years old, alongside her 7-year-old sister, Princess Margaret, as a brownie.
Isle of Wight bin strike. Pay rise request fundamentally unsustainable, says Amy as strike looms. From the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Susan. The Isle of Wight Council has reacted to comments from Refuge business partner Amy as the threat of an island-wide bin strike looms. It comes after workers were balloted for industrial action due to what the company labelled a below-influential pay rise. Amy says workers were told if they wanted better pay, they should travel to the mainland. The Isle of Wight Council's statement says, "We are always aware that our business partner, Amy, is a real-life wage employer, which has provided staff with favourable pay increases every year of the contract to date. The men and women delivering our waste collection and treatment services have worked incredibly hard over the pandemic to keep our waste and recycling collected and our public spaces clear. We cannot thank them enough for their dedication and determination they have shown for our community. An Amy spokesman said, "We have offered a pay increase of 4.21%, in line with the real living wage increase that came into effect on April the 1st. The salary package our staff receive is enhanced with pay on bank holidays and available overtime." Since Amy took on the contract in November 2015, wages for our drivers have increased 27%, but the request of an additional increase in wages of more than 30% in 2022 is fundamentally unsustainable. We will do everything we can to avoid strike action and continue to talk to our employees to ensure that they are supported and kept informed. Workers earlier declared themselves incensed when they discovered the increase offered only took their pay up to the rates advertised for trainees on the mainland. The strike ballot opens on Friday, May the 13th and closes on May the 27th.
This is Michael reading an article from On the White. 2 Isle of Wight venues to have welfare officers to help people stay safe on a night out. On the Isle of Wight, the tabards will be used by welfare officers at Fever and Boutique and Coburgs. Hampshire Constabulary is delighted to announce it will be supplying 100 tabards to welfare officers working in bars and nightclubs across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Welfare officers are staff members at venues dedicated to helping customers and ensuring everyone stays safe during a night out. They have received training to recognise the signs of drunkenness, drug abuse, and whether a customer is underage or vulnerable. The officers are also alert to any predatory behaviour or any activity that may lead to crime and disorder. Earlier this year, officers from Hampshire Constabulary set up a project to improve the visibility of welfare officers in nighttime economy venues across both counties. Welfare officers will now be easily identifiable within venues thanks to 100 new pink tabards that have welfare written across the front and back. Funded by Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council, the Hart District Council and Hart District Council, the tabards will ensure the officers stay clearly visible and more approachable when working in venues. Rob Cohen, Force Licensing and Alcohol Harm Reduction Sergeant, set up the project and is delighted to be able to roll out the tabards. He said, "It is great to see the licences across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight are employing welfare officers to support their customers and reduce vulnerability in our towns and cities." The response from the trade has been very positive. This is an opportunity for venues to highlight the welfare provisions they have in place and encourage others to do the same. The improved visibility of welfare support staff in our venues will encourage members of the public to seek help for themselves or others. This visibility will be the same in all participating venues, whether you will go for a night out in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. He added, "I would like to express my thanks to both Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council and Hart District Council for their support and funding to make this happen. We have been able to purchase 100 pink tabards with the word welfare on them So now people will be able to immediately recognise a welfare officer. Customers are not loyal to one venue, but they migrate between clubs and bars. And if there is that consistent approach to welfare visibility, this can only be a benefit. I am still hoping other venues will get involved and they can reach out to receive information on the benefits of welfare officers. This is a project that will benefit the whole force, and it highlights how we are all working together to help protect the community. Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council's Interim Executive Director of Resident Services, Tom Payne, said, "Keeping our residents safe is a priority for both Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council and Hart Council. We are pleased to work with our partners to provide these tabards for the welfare officers. The nighttime economy has been hit hard by the pandemic, and the welfare officers will make people enjoying a night out feel safer and more secure. We would like to remind those in the community they can flag areas on a map where they do not feel safe, regardless of whether a crime has taken place. The data will then be used to improve safety and introduce new measures such as nighttime patrols or installing better street lighting in the local community. The tool forms part of the government's whole system approach to tackling violence against women and girls. For more information, please visit the website."
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Chief Constable Award for dedicated leading Isle of Wight detective. One of the Isle of Wight's leading detectives, Acting Detective Sergeant Ian Robertson, has been recognised for his dedication at Hampshire Constabulary's Chief Constable Awards ceremony. The ceremony, hosted by Chief Constable Olivia Pinkney, was held at the Police Support and Training Headquarters in Netley on Friday, 6th of May. Attendees were joined by friends and family, as well as other guests including Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones, Lord Lieutenant Nigel Atkinson, and her Honour Judge, Angela Morris. ADS Robinson was one of the number of officers and staff from across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight who were awarded for their outstanding service to the public and victims of crime. Ian has been involved in many of the more serious investigations on the island, often altering his personal life in order to go above and beyond his commitment to investigating crime while stepping up to the role of acting detective sergeant. In addition, Ian has delivered a series of training sessions for special constables on top of his day job to enhance the skills of these officers. Guests at the ceremony were also told of the tremendous support Ian provided to colleagues during periods of high demand, keeping a close eye on the welfare of others. On one particular occasion, Ian supported officers who had been working long hours in bad weather at the scene of an assault with limited access to food and water. He was presented with the Chief Constable's Quite a Brilliance Award in recognition of his committed personal response to serious crime on the island and presenting professional and knowledgeable support to colleagues and other supervisors during times of peak demand. In particular, for taking ownership of serious offences and actively promoting an investigative response and victim-focused approach in the role of acting detective sergeant.
Popular Rider Bus event is back for 2022 after a 2-year hiatus. From Island Echo, read by Chris. This weekend sees the return of the Rider Bus event organised by the Isle of Wight Bus and Coach Museum. Postponed twice because of COVID, plans have been revived and enhanced for 2022. New features include park and ride facilities at the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary in Wroxall and retro staycations in Ashy. Vintage buses will operate special free services linking the park and ride sites with the bus museum in Ryde and other attractions. Holders of the Rider Bus programme, which includes full timetable information, will be able to claim special offers and discounts at more than 30 venues simply by presenting their programme. Doors open at 10 a.m. on both days, Saturday the 14th and Sunday the 15th of May 2022. Further information can be found on the website riderbus.co.uk.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Wootton's Woodside Retreat to appear in new Ainsley Harriott TV show. Wootton's Woodside Bay Lodge Retreat is to appear on a new TV show presented by Ainsley Harriott and Grace Dent. Best of Britain by the Sea will see the two presenters visit some of the UK's best seaside holiday destinations. In episode 5 of the programme, which will air on More 4 and Channel 4, the pair pay a visit to Woodside Coastal Retreat in Wootton. The show will follow Grace and Ainsley as they stay in a self-catering property where they cook for each other using their favourite produce and set off to explore the surrounding area. The duo were pictured filming on the island back in February. The Isle of Wight episode will air at 9 p.m. on Monday, June the 13th on More 4, then aired on Channel 4 later that week. Full details of the property are below and attached, along with the rest of the properties. All the accommodation featured in Best of Britain by the Sea is available to book through Hoseasons. https://www.hoseasons.co.uk.
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Man charged with drink driving after beeper shoot crash. A man has been charged with drink driving after a vehicle ended up on its roof on the outskirts of Ryde Wednesday night. As Isle of Wight Radio previously reported, a car overturned on Beepershoot just after 8 p.m. Officers attended and a man was arrested. The road was closed for a time but has since reopened. Andrew Thomas Bruce, 26, of Fairfield Gardens Lake, has been charged with driving a vehicle when alcohol level above limit. He has been bailed to appear at Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on May 27th.
Good morning everyone, this is Mike.
And this is Kate. Hello.
Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's society news. Swimming will take place this Monday as normal. The group welcomed a new member this week, but are always looking for more members to join them at Medina Leisure Centre, held every Monday between 1:30 and 2:30 p.m. The group has full use of the pool and the cost is only £5.
Coffee and chat is on every Wednesday at Millbrook House, 10 o'clock to 11:30 a.m, and it's only £1 for cake and coffee. Please come along for a chat, and members of staff will be there for any assistance with equipment and information.
Our Mix and Mingle group is on a Thursday at Millbrook House between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. The group enjoys a variety of activities.
10-pin bowling is booked for the 25th of May at Ryde Super Bowl between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. If you would like to join us, please call the office and book a space.
Our plans for the Jubilee Party on the 26th of May are well underway. We still have a few spaces left. It is at the First Newport Scout Hall in Newport between 2 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. If you would like to join us for afternoon tea and entertainment, please call the office and book a space. The afternoon is free and open to members, carers and volunteers.
And now the news items. COVID positive patients are sent home from hospital. Patients still testing positive for COVID are being sent home from St Mary's as the hospital tries to free up bed space. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust has had to make difficult decisions to prioritise patients who are in more need of emergency care. In recent weeks, health leaders have issued an urgent plea to residents to only seek help in an emergency amid a perfect storm of rising pressures. Challenges include an increase in people being treated in emergency departments, with almost every hospital bed in the region full, because patients who could leave hospital had nowhere to go. People were being turned away from the emergency department and directed to more appropriate services where required. The move to discharge COVID-positive patients falls in line with recent government guidance. They can be sent home or to a care setting with the appropriate isolation advice. Now, figures from the Isle of Wight NHS Trust show that between April the 1st and May the 3rd, it discharged 65 patients who were clinically fit but who had received a positive COVID test up to 10 days prior. Of those, 54 went back to their usual place of residence, including their homes, residential or nursing homes, and 11 were discharged to a temporary residence or specialist care setting. The Trust has asked families and carers to support their loved ones in the short term. The health body is asking people who think they need urgent or emergency care to phone 111 or visit 111 online first, which will direct them to the service most suited to their needs.
Collision due to medical incident. A multi-vehicle accident in which 2 people were taken to hospital took place outside the Sloop Inn opposite Kite Hill, Wootton, last Friday, which was April the 6th. Police, ambulance and fire engines were alerted to the incident around 1:45 p.m. The collision involved a Southern Vectis bus, a white VW Caddy, a blue Peugeot 207 and a black Peugeot 206, and is suspected to have occurred due to a medical incident. A female bus passenger was taken to the hospital with a leg injury, along with the male van driver. The road was closed and diversions were put in place until the scene was cleared and vehicle recovery was arranged. Southern Vectis General Manager Richard Tildesley confirmed the driver of the van was injured and a passenger on the bus was also hurt and attended by paramedics. We are monitoring their progress and wish them both a full and speedy recovery. Our management team is caring for our driver, who was shaken but doesn't appear to have suffered any physical injuries. The bus was badly damaged and is being dealt with by our engineers.
Cremation price hikes revealed. The cost of burials could stay the same after an increase in fees was halted, but the price of cremations is still set to rise. The pause in the charge increase, however, has already lost the Isle of Wight Council £10,000. Following the approval of the Council's budget in February for the 2022-23 financial year, bereavement service fees were going to increase between 5 and 10%. But councillors were concerned about the affordability to islanders. The Cabinet is now looking to put in a revised fee structure, which will keep some charges the same as last year, but see others increase. The recently released Cabinet report reveals the only change in the cremation fees is that for a direct cremation, which could cost £450 instead of the £608 approved in February alongside the other cremation increases. Burial costs will remain the same. The introduction of the fees approved in the budget would make the council £120,000. That's £30,000 in fees for the live streaming video service and £90,000 from the increase in fees. For each month the introduction is delayed, though, it will cost the council £10,000. This is a financial risk, the council says, as the income supports other services. Should the revised fees be introduced, as officers recommend, on July the 1st, then the pause would have cost the authority £30,000. The other option for Cabinet members is to not implement the revised charges, meaning the council would have to find £120,000 from elsewhere in the budget. Cabinet were due to decide on the new fees last night, Thursday. Currently, in the bereavement services business model, there is an annual 5.4% increase in fees built into the budget. The review will include a look at rising utility costs, which is already a potential budget pressure, with financial modelling to include additional funds for maintenance and refurbishment. The report says the administration is intending to proactively seek new streams of income it can reinvest in services for the community by acting in a more commercially focused manner.
2 new additions to the Donkey Sanctuary. The Donkey Sanctuary in Wroxall has welcomed 2 new donkeys, Hannah and Hazel, rehomed locally from Whitwell. They were loved and cared for, but the owners became too unwell to give them what they needed. Online fundraising and social media manager Lucy Smith said, "They were owned by a couple locally who have become old and unwell and did not feel capable of giving them the care that they deserve. So they asked us to take them on. They're really lovely, friendly girls with strong characters. We are still getting to know them, but we can tell that they will be very popular with everyone. They are both a little chunky, so we'll be in the wait and see herd for a while until they lose a bit of weight." When they arrived, the donkeys were kept in light quarantine for a short period of time to ensure they were fit and healthy. They are slightly overweight, so once cleared from quarantine, they will be introduced into the wait and see group in order to remove some of that extra weight to be as healthy as possible.
A project to restore historic hedges in Calbourne has taken a step forward with the aid of enthusiastic villagers who are keen to get hands-on with conservation work. The hedgerows at Gottenlees Farm had become over-mature and needed gapping up with native species to restore them as historic landscape features and important wildlife corridors. Guided by Tony Ridd of Landscape Therapy, who supplied the hedge plants, the planting also ticked a box for the Green Church Initiative and the Queen's Green Canopy. Part funded by the government's Farming in Protected Landscapes initiative, administered through the island's Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, the planting was organised by landowners and farmers Sam and Fiona Biles, whose families have farmed the land for around 90 years. The scheme encourages community participation, and villagers welcomed the opportunity to become involved in and achieve donations for the village church. Tea and cake were provided and enjoyed by the team in the spring sunshine on the 2 planting days, and further planting will take place at the farm over the next 2 winters.
Large greenhouse fire. A large fire broke out in a greenhouse at the rear of a luxury property at Ashlake Farm between Fishbourne and Wootton on Monday afternoon, which is May the 9th. The blaze broke out shortly before 4 p.m. and flames and plumes of black smoke could be seen billowing into the sky. Fire appliances from East Cowes and Newport were called to the scene, and the fire was extinguished around 4:30 p.m. with firefighters remaining to damp down. The greenhouse was destroyed and there was some heat damage to a neighbouring garage.
Chillerton School saved. Chillerton and Rookley Primary School looks to have been saved from closure. Isle of Wight Council Education Lead, Councillor Debbie Andre, announced this week that the Alliance administration had decided not to proceed with closing the small school in the central Wight village. She said, "We won't be proceeding with issuing a public notice to commence amalgamation with Godsill, leading to closure. This announcement ends the uncertainty around the future of the school, and we hope that more parents will want to apply for places at the local school, confident that there will be continuity in their child's academic journey." Councillor Andre said when this administration took office in May 2021, it inherited a consultation about the future of Chillerton and Rookley Primary School, with an emphasis on the potential amalgamation with Godsill, therefore effectively closing Chillerton and Rookley. She added that many members of the new administration were concerned by the consultation initiated by the previous administration and the direction of travel towards closure, and made public commitments that they would do everything possible to prevent the closure of small village primary schools on the island. She said, "We believe that schools are one of the fundamental pillars of a community and that they play a vital and central role in village life, especially within our rural communities. There are social as well as economic benefits to children of primary age attending local schools with small classes." Throughout this period of uncertainty, the head teacher, staff and governors have continued under difficult circumstances to maintain the quality of education on offer at both Godsill and Chillerton and Rookley, and I would like to pay tribute to their professionalism. It is important that we continue to focus on improving the quality of education so that children experience high quality provision, including a rich and rounded curriculum. I have asked officers to ensure the school is well supported moving forward so that it has the necessary capacity to deliver the ambitions we all share for our island children. Education officers would now be investigating options as to how the council can support smaller and more rural schools so that they can be sustained during periods of falling numbers and financial challenges, particularly in light of the new white paper on education.
Government says no to Island Buses Master Plan. Proposed major improvements to the island's bus services look likely to be shelved after the Isle of Wight Council missed out on government funding. The plans included more routes and an increased timetable. As part of a multi-billion-pound Bus Back Better scheme, local authorities have been asked to create a partnership with bus operators in a bid to improve services outside of London and get more people using public transport. Through a £100,000 bus service improvement plan BSIP, the Isle of Wight Council and Southern Vectors put forward ideas which would make the public transport offer better. Southern Vectors had created a 116-point wish list of the things it would like to do to improve the service on the island. Bigger improvements included the creation of bus lanes or specific routes around the island, including around Coppins Bridge and a Fairley bus transit route on the former railway line to avoid the congestion on Fairley Road. The BSIP also included smaller plans such as installing electronic timetables and more lighting at bus stops. Now it has been announced the partnership was unsuccessful in its funding bid. Speaking at the Isle of Wight Council's Neighbourhoods and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee last week, Councillor Phil Jordan, Cabinet Member for Transport, said the partnership's aspirations would now change as the lack of funding would impact what can be brought forward. After the meeting, though, Councillor Jordan said the partnership was still committed to the BSIP and partnership with Southern Vectors, but how the aspirations are delivered remain to be seen. He said the little things like bus shelter improvements were still part of the aspirations. Other work has not been entirely ruled out, though, as the council drafts its latest local transport plan, LTP, which would be the authority's main transport policy between 2023 and 2038. One of the items included the LTP would be the council's carbon net zero target. This includes moving people out of cars and onto public transport. Councillor Jordan said to encourage that, though the island needed good public transport, so that could mean improvements such as how buses are powered.
Yarmouth RNLI was called to assist a 24-foot yacht. Yarmouth RNLI was tasked to launch by HM Coast Guard on Sunday, May the 8th at 12:22 p.m. to assist a 24-foot yacht which had run aground. The crew headed west out of Yarmouth Harbour towards Warden Ledge, where the casualty was located, and had been waiting to refloat on the incoming tide. Although the conditions were calm to slight, with 10 knots of west-northwest winds, the flooding tide was pushing the vessel onto the ledge. Instead of being able to free themselves independently on the rising tide as expected, the boat needed assistance. Having assessed the situation and established that the one person on board was safe and well, the coxswain made the decision to launch its smaller inflatable Y-class boat to assess the situation and subsequently tow the casualty into deeper water. Once afloat, the single-handed sailor of the yacht continued on his journey, and Yarmouth RNLI recovered its Y-boat and returned to the harbour. The lifeboat was ready for service at 1:36 p.m.
Parish Council joins fight. The Parish Council joined the fight against the Isle of Wight Council over a controversial 470 house development in Ryde. Nettleston and Seaview Parish Council donated £750 to the Save Westridge Farm judicial review. Councillors agreed to financially support the legal challenge after community members expressed grave concerns about the process that led to planning permission being granted for West Acre Park. Councillors Trish Redpath and David Barry said they and other councillors are concerned the development would merge Ryde with Nettleston and Seaview. They say due to the huge number of development applications in Ryde, its infrastructure is set to be swamped, so all planning decisions must be taken with the utmost care. The Save Westridge Farm campaign says it has outlined more than 60 errors in the planning process, but the Isle of Wight Council says it has a valid argument for all the points raised. After the planning permission was once again confirmed by the Isle of Wight Council in March, it can officially be granted, which then starts a 6-week time frame to take the case to a judicial review.
Police are asking for firearms. From yesterday, Thursday, until May the 29th, the police are requesting people to hand over their firearms and unwanted ammunition. This is to help avoid the chance of the guns getting into the wrong hands and being involved in a crime. Those handing them in won't be prosecuted for illegal possession of a weapon. They can be handed into Newport Police Station and the person can remain anonymous.
Here's a very short one here. College Glasshouse. Island-based business APS Produce Group and P3P partners have donated a custom-designed glasshouse to Medina College in Newport. It was constructed on the site by Cambridge HOK. The glass house will be available for students to grow plants all year round, and it will act as their own protected area.
Energy recovery plant handover delayed again. The final handover of the overdue energy from waste plant on Forest Road has been pushed back once again. It now has been 3 years after the supposed commencement date for the energy recovery facility to start full-scale operations. Last November, the Isle of Wight Council said it was due to start operating in January this year, but councillors were then told April. Now further problems have arisen. In a written response to a question asked by former Environment and Waste Cabinet member Councillor Steve Hastings, the current portfolio holder, Councillor Jonathan Bacon, revealed commissioning had identified issues with some of the plant's elements. At the Council's Neighbourhoods and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee last night, Thursday, Councillor Bacon said a decision was made to replace the elements to ensure the facility would be fit for purpose, following hot commissioning and the final acceptance test. Hot commissioning, which tests all systems before it enters service, had been started at the plant but was paused when the problems were found. It has since recommenced, and the plant is now burning non-recyclable waste which, the council hopes, once properly online, will be able to generate renewable electricity for up to 5,000 homes. A 30-day continuous test of the plant is required to pass and receive an acceptance test certificate, which is scheduled to take place in June. If things stay on track, it is thought the handover date will be July. Councillor Bacon said, as with all major projects, the Council and its technical advisors are closely scrutinising the tests and are ensuring that the new energy recovery facility is rigorously examined and tested prior to the handover. It will then be subject to performance tests following acceptance to ensure performance is maintained. Work started on the energy recovery facility 6 years ago, and its completion has been continuously delayed, with the original commencement date quoted for May 2019. The COVID pandemic has also impacted the building of the facility, when construction was suspended in March 2020. All delays and additional work costs, however, are not at the Isle of Wight Council's expense and sit with Amy, the Council's waste contract providers.
No need for taxi price hike. I don't need a major pay increase, says an Isle of Wight taxi driver, railing against a controversial price hike. An island charity has also objected to the plans, fearing for the people it represents. It comes as the Isle of Wight Council is looking to approve a significant rise in taxi fares, which could see some fares go up by 50%. The council had consulted with the island's taxi trade, and the majority were in favour of the increase due to rising running costs. The issue was first discussed in March, when the proposed prices were put out for consultation. They would have been automatically approved if there had been no objections. However, 5 representations were received, including one from a taxi driver who broke ranks and objected, citing fears for a knock-on impact on pubs and restaurants and possibly leading to more drink driving. The taxi driver of 4 years believed the island's taxi fares were already quite overpriced and said an increase would lead to a significant drop in business, especially at night. Local charity Sight for Wight has also submitted the strongest objections to what must be an unprecedented increase and therefore not reasonable. The charity said it understood petrol prices are rising, but the increases simply cannot be justified based on that. It said its members, who are all blind and partially sighted, rely on taxis, many on a daily basis, and with 16% of its members of working age in employment. Funds are not available to sustain such a hike in prices. The Council's Cabinet is now being asked to approve the increase, but is advised by officers to make sure fares are proportionate and affordable while still ensuring the taxi operators have a viable business. Officers have also previously warned about a lack of public support. If Cabinet members approve the increase, the news prices will start on June the 1st.
A paedophile jailed. Paul Elvins was sentenced to 4 years and 8 months for admitting to 20 charges of attempting sexual contact with minors. His hearing was last Friday, May the 6th, at the Isle of Wight Crown Court, where he was sentenced by Judge Barry McElduff.
A class result. Campaigners were jubilant this week after their 170-year-old village school was saved from closure. An announcement by Councillor Debbie Andre, Isle of Wight Council Cabinet Member for Education, delivered a reprieve for Chillerton and Rookley Primary School, which its governing body, the Stenbury Federation, wanted to close and amalgamate with God's Hill Primary School. The decision followed several rounds of consultation over the school's future, one of which, under the previous Conservative administration, was criticised for flawed processes and was the subject of complaints to the local government ombudsman. The number of pupils last October had fallen to just 21, but according to parents, that was due to uncertainty about the future and the decision in 2019 to move the preschool reception and Year 6 classes to God's Hill on a temporary basis. In a letter to a parent earlier this year, Assistant Director of Education Brian Pope said, "Temporary arrangements cannot be in place for more than 2 years without a formal consultation. With the 2 years now up, campaigners are hoping that the missing classes will now be moved back to their village school to help it flourish." During the initial consultation, it was stated that the school was financially unsustainable and could not provide the required breadth of curriculum. However, as well as ordering the school to remain open, Councillor Andre has tasked officers with making sure that the school is well supported. She said she is committed to finding an island-appropriate model to support other primary schools facing failing pupil numbers and financial challenges. Councillor Andre said in recent years, "We've seen more rural schools close and others under threat." The Alliance Group gave a commitment to reconsider these closure plans. We met with the local community, teachers and parents, and we listened. There was a passion and enthusiasm for the school that couldn't be denied. It's not just about the school itself, it's about the effect on the whole community. We have worked closely with our education officers, and I'm grateful for their professionalism and support in finding solutions. There is still much work to do, and this is just the beginning, but we are up for the challenge. Save Our School spokesman Keith Herbert said the group was delighted with the outcome, which gives a bright future for rural schools. He added, "Very few places have such a strong community backing, and the school was saved by so many people offering their help. Our heartfelt thanks goes out to everyone." We look forward to full provision being restored to this beautiful site so that it can flourish again. Both he and the group's chairman, Nigel Phillips, also paid tribute to Councillor Andre, with Mr Phillips adding, The decision is a wonderful example of the people speaking and politicians actually listening. Local councillor Susie Ellis said she was pleased an announcement had been made on the school's future and welcome any initiative to deliver high quality and sustainable education locally. Some of her Conservative colleagues seemed less pleased at the outcome. At the corporate scrutiny meeting on Tuesday, Councillor Chris Quirk said his 10 years of experience in education made him sceptical that small schools could remain open without affecting budgets for other schools. Tory group leader Councillor Joe Robertson agreed with him and was non-committal whether he believed the school should remain open. However, Councillor Andre said a number of options were being considered, and she was confident a model could be found, taking a whole island approach. Diana Barker, the current chairwoman of Governors, said now the decision had been made, they were planning for staffing and structures to be in place for September.
And now we move to White Memories. The island's many changing and lost industries are remembered. Time and tide waits for no man, so the saying goes. Perhaps it applies more to industries than anything else, and even here on the island we have our fair share of these changes. It can be quite interesting looking at some of these changes that have taken place, so here are just a few of the many. The island had a few gasworks, this being the time when gas was produced from coal. All of these were easily recognisable by the gasometers, which were circular gas storage tanks. There's a photograph showing the gasworks at Ryde, now long gone. Perhaps it would have been a good idea to have listed one of these types of gasometers for future generations, as once they were part of our industrial landscape. Sited on the banks of the River Medina was the large factory of Cero Products, Cero being a shortening for the name Saunders Row. This huge works next to the Folly Inn came into being in the 1930s, and during that period were producing a unique form of wood laminate, given the name Corsuta. During that period and up to the late 1940s, they were producing 40% of all the wood used for UK aircraft. However, in the 1960s, with changes in industrial practices, the factory moved into the production of laminated plastic products. But due to financial changes in industry, they finally closed the doors in the 1990s, leaving a huge derelict site which is now under redevelopment for more houses.
South Street in Newport once hosted an eclectic collection of small buildings. These were rapidly demolished during the 1970s to make way for the island's first large supermarket, Mainstop. This building project also involved the demolition of property in Pyle Street. Upon its completion, crowds flocked to this new large shopping experience, which also had a rooftop car park. Eventually, it morphed into the Co-op, to be followed today as the outlet for TK Maxx. Although not a building, nevertheless an important industry for transporting people across the Solent must rate highly on the scale. Again, the changes that have taken place with the boats have been considerable. Through the era of paddle boats, diesel boats, to the high-speed boats of today. Among those paddle boats is Ryde, who has lain sadly rusting on the banks of the Medina for many years. Again, it's something that could have been saved for future posterity, but is probably now lost forever. Camp Hill Prison, pictured, taken from the air during the 1930s period, was built under the period of Winston Churchill's appointment as Home Secretary. Very colonial and spacious in style, it was a model prison of the period due to its design. During the past few years, it had housed the lower category risk prisoners, but due to changes in the prison system, it was considered superfluous to needs and again looks like being the subject of more housing. One can only hope that some of the prison's unique architecture will be retained. Other countries would have perhaps found the money to turn it into a museum, but again the powers that be only think of today. Seaside piers were once a fashionable attraction and a huge seaside industry in themselves. But during the past few years, the island has lost some of its piers and the small industries that operated on them. Shanklin was destroyed in a storm and Ventnor was demolished. However, we still have Sandown, Ryde, Yarmouth, and also undergoing restoration, Totland. One of the more ornate piers lost to a storm was Seaview. Today there is practically no evidence of this very popular pier's existence. How will industries change in the future? Well, that's going to be an unanswerable question.
And now it is My View, this week written by Michelle Wright, a Mountbatten supporter. Last Sunday I did the 8-mile flat walk in memory of my late husband Stephen Wright, who died at Mountbatten on June the 29th, 2019. While Steve was staying at Mountbatten, he decided he wanted to do the walk. By then, Steve was in his wheelchair as his cancer was more advanced and he had fractured his pelvis from a tumour. However, he was still determined to do it, and my family, friends and I joined him. Steve, as only Steve could, never complained and continually smiled throughout. He got out of his wheelchair around 200 yards from the Shide finish line and walked with his crutches to the end to receive his medal. Why did Steve and I do this walk? For the Mountbatten nurses, volunteers, housekeepers, all the staff, and of course not forgetting the chef, who always provided the food Steve loved the most. They were simply amazing. The entire Mountbatten team all added to the best stay, care, support and love anyone should get when they are vulnerable and dying. They also supported me throughout. Walk the White is such a small thing we can do to raise funds for Mountbatten. I continue to walk in Steve's name and Sunday was very special. There is a walk for everyone, regardless of ability, and by joining together as one, we can do so much for this wonderful place. I will always support Mountbatten in any way I can. I am forever in their debt and grateful to each and every one of them. Thank you to everyone for walking last Sunday, and to everyone, please save the date for next year. It's Sunday, May the 14th, 2023, and join me when I walk the White in 2023.
This is another My View opinion, and it's written by Jim Gibbons, entitled Welcome to Sunny Rwanda. The latest government wheeze to solve the problem of people fleeing from France is to post them off to Africa, whence they can make their applications at their leisure for legal entry to this country. I cannot imagine this being successful. No doubt the cost of housing all these humans there would be less than housing them here, but the transport costs would be high, and all the voters who disapprove of lettuces being carried about will cast a baleful glare on humans being treated similarly. Whatever agreement the two governments might come to could be overturned by the courts of either, making the confusion worse confounded. Presumably, this new scheme is designed to be unpopular, with a view to reducing the numbers entering the country illegally. That wouldn't work anyway, unless the would-be residents believed it, and insofar as they do believe it, they will try to get here, in quantity, before the change happens. The main attractions of this country are the language, which we can do nothing about, and the relatively easy access to unemployment benefits and healthcare. Since we are the most densely populated European country, as it is, and much of the land as yet unbuilt on is floodplains, I do believe we have to make illegal entry less attractive and quickly. This is what I think we should do. Everyone who enters without permission from now on should immediately have their fingerprints and DNA recorded. The government should make it be known that those who have previously entered illegally should register themselves similarly with the authorities or commit an offence. 2. All those people should be required to live in camps set up for them in conditions less than comfortable and work for the state for their keep for 2 years or until their refugee status has been granted. Does this sound cruel? Harsh? Do I hear the word slavery being muttered? Like myself, millions of young men experienced similar conditions in what was then called national service, devoting 2 years of our young lives to the national cause. Since we judge time by what time we have experienced, 2 years to us was 10% of our life. We did not complain, well, not more than the traditional grumbles of the British servicemen. Had we suspected the real purpose of national service was to disguise the level of unemployment? But that's another column. The poet mentioned in my last article, who wrote of giving your heart to a dog to tear, was Kipling. Now, which French politician said, "Politics is too important to be left to the politicians."
And now public information, which is by Superintendent Jim Pegler of Hampshire Constabulary. He writes of changes to the team plus the latest news. There have been some changes to the policing team on the island recently as we welcomed some new officers and bid farewell to others. Chief Inspector Alex Charge has recently joined my team to lead the operational policing on the island. Alex leads a strong management team of 7 inspectors overseeing the excellent work of uniform officers and staff. Inspectors Matt Gooding, Lou Kennedy and Ali Atwood are very welcome additions to the team. Detective Inspector Marcus Baker has taken over responsibility of our brilliant investigating team, and he will be supported by Detective Chief Inspector Amy Schock. We go into the summer with an increased and fresh leadership team, and I'm confident they will bring real focus to the community's concerns and the perpetrators behind these. Ali Atwood will lead our high harm team, targeting serious offenders who will be encouraged to seek help and change their behaviour or face very high levels of police scrutiny. Last month, a murder investigation was launched on the island after 55-year-old David Johns died during an incident at an address in Shanklin. I know that these sorts of incidents, while rare, come as a shock to our communities. I want to reassure the public that the circumstances are being thoroughly investigated. There is no wider risk to residents connected to this incident, and a man has been arrested and has been assisting officers with inquiries. We will provide further updates on this case at the appropriate time as inquiries progress. I want to recognise the bravery of a man who spoke to the county press recently about the sexual abuse he had suffered as a young child. The now 30-year-old man kept this abuse secret for more than 2 decades before courageously contacting police and ensuring his abuser, 58-year-old Michael Smith from Sundown, was jailed. I hope the survivor's commendable actions and his message printed in this paper will encourage anyone else out there who has been abused or is suffering in silence to report to police or seek support. Finally, I have seen some very troubling footage taken from phones recently that depicts children aged 14 to 16 engaging in quite serious violence. It was lucky no one was seriously harmed. We have charged 2 boys in connection with this activity. I urge parents to be intrusive into what their children share on their phones and to speak to them about the dangers of violence. In turn, police and partners will be working hard to address this behaviour and prevent an escalation in youth violence.
How to avoid household goods scams. We are seeing a real rise in reports of domestic insurance warranty scams, writes Sally Ash, the Isle of Wight Council Fair Trading Officer. These callers will tell you that your TV, fridge, freezer, cooker, boiler, drainage insurance needs to renewing and persuade you into signing up with them. We worry about these things going wrong, so automatically believe that we have to renew. These callers are relentless and will persistently call you to try to bully you into agreeing. We have visited with many residents who have agreed to these arrangements, and from looking at their bank details can see that multiple payments are being taken. These will usually be under different names, but generally they all come under the same company, and this is the scam. Together with the fact that if you do have a problem with an appliance, you can't get hold of anyone, and you will find that the insurance isn't worth the paper it's written on. If you haven't done so for a while, check your bank account. Make sure you are making multiple payments to these companies. If you care for an elderly friend or relative, help them to do this to ensure that they aren't playing out unnecessarily. If you are plagued by these types of call, consider some form of call blocking to protect yourself. Reporting a scam. For advice on scams, call Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline 0808 250 5050. To report a scam call, Action Fraud 0300 123 2040. If you are concerned about somebody you care about, or for more information on scams, visit www.iwasp.org.uk.
And now to what's on. Sky's the limit for Robin Hill's Balloon Festival. It will be Eyes to the Skies in May when Robin Hill presents the official Isle of Wight Balloon Festival. Ascend into a world where the sky is the limit at the event, which will be on from May the 28th to the 30th. Industry specialists, Exclusive Ballooning, will join the Robin Hill team for an exciting weekend of balloon tethering, talks from award-winning world-famous pilots, and internationally renowned night glow performances. Last year's Sky High event welcomed over 4,000 visitors a day to the park for a whole day of entertainment. And the Isle of Wight Balloon Festival is expected to expand this further for a bigger event in 2022 with a fresh new look. James Crofts, park manager, said, "After the success of our previous hot air balloon events, we're excited to transform the Lower Valley into a festival experience like no other and bring a unique entertainment offering to the island. Tickets are available to book in advance on computer, which is the Robin Hill event website."
Head Funk Night for Ukraine. An Island Club Night is returning to raise vital funds for the people of Ukraine. Head Funk is hosting charity fundraiser Unity for Ukraine on Friday, May the 20th. Profits for the event will go to charities working with people displaced by the conflict. Local bands, DJs and spoken word artists will take part at Brown's Golf Course Sandown in the main clubhouse. There will also be an acoustic campfire with singer-songwriters and poets. Among those involved are Froglands, PK and Preost. You can also expect acoustic sets from indie rock, Trio Boca and singer-songwriter Cara Goodrim. Also appearing are Our Girl G, Shuffler Max, Eric Bruce and Kaftan. The event will start at 7 p.m. and will run until the early hours. Visit countypress.co.uk for a link to buy tickets.
Meet the acts aiming for the festival main stage. 5 Isle of Wight bands and singer-songwriters have made it to the next stage of Platform 1's White Noise competition and will now battle it out for a chance to play at the Isle of Wight Festival on the event's main stage. The acts will each perform 4 songs at a showcase event to be held at Strings Bar and Venue in Newport on Saturday, that's tomorrow, from 7 p.m. A winner will be announced on Sunday, May the 15th. Alternative rock band Now Only said on Facebook, "Well then, can't say how proud we are to be here, of ourselves and all the amazing talent involved." A 4-piece rock band The Optimists said, "Feels great to be playing White Noise again this year. We want to thank Platform 1. A massive congrats to the other finalists. But we need you guys to come down to support us." Country, folk and pop singer and songwriter Beth Brookfield said, "So grateful to be on the shortlist and in with a chance of making one of my biggest goals become a reality." Greek Tragedies said, "Just received the news that we've been shortlisted. We hope that everyone for the island that we've met over the last couple of years comes down to see one of our last gigs at Strings. It's going to be a night to remember with all you there." Chicks said, "Absolute pleasure to be nominated as a finalist for White Noise this year. To say we're thrilled is an understatement." Although the winner will get to play Isle of Wight Festival's main stage, all the finalists will win a spot on the Platform 1 stage and will get industry support from Sync, Vault and Empire Studios. The Isle of Wight Festival will bring headliners Lewis Capaldi, Kasabian, Muse and a host of other acts, including the Proclaimers, Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott and Del Amitri. That's Seaclose Park in Newport, June the 16th to the 19th.
We have live music for a good cause. People from the Ventnor area who need support in travelling to the mainland for cancer treatment are set to benefit from a charity gig. Matt Dodge has got several bands together to play in Ventnor Park on Sunday, May the 22nd. Matt and other musicians wanted to support Patch, which is People's Approach to Cancer Help, a registered charitable trust started in Ventnor to help residents with the costs of travel. It was started in 1989 and money raised stays in the area. It is run by 3 people, Erica and Den Arnold and Ross Barrow, who will be there to welcome visitors. Playing on the day are the Slow Cats, What Eva, Lucan and the Beat Buddy, the Yabba Family Folk 4-piece band and Matt's band, the Bohemians. The fun lasts from noon until 6 p.m. Refreshment will be available and people are advised to take along a chair and or a blanket. The event is free, but any donations to Patch will be welcome.
And now it's the letters. Tongue-in-cheek, Malcolm, asks Leslie Hampshire of Shanklin. I just have to respond to Malcolm Mime's latest piece. Pull the other one, Malcolm Mime. We know you love being controversial, but the piece in last week's issue, the 6th of May, just about takes the biscuit. However, it does say something for the county press's policy on free speech, that in these days of cancel culture and social media attacks, it's happy to publish alternative views so they can be held up to scrutiny. Now, let's see how your ideas on man-made climate change stand up to reasoned argument. Basically, you're telling us not to listen to BBC reports and the such like, by which I'm assuming you mean 98% of scientific experts in the field. Right, so that leaves us with the opinions of the conspiracy theory, stroke virtual reality, stroke alternative truth brigade. Reminds me of someone unjustly deprived of high office. You admit that climate change happens anyway, though not yet on the Isle of Wight, thank goodness, but we can't defy Mother Nature, so we might as well follow your example and carry on as usual. Plus we could try going a bit further and buy gas-guzzling Chelsea tractors. Bit of an old goal right now with the increase in fuel prices. Heat our homes with coal fires. I don't know where you can even buy coal. And jet off in Boeing 747s whenever and wherever we feel like it. There's just one problem with this. If the oh so reliable information you're following is wrong, aren't you just adding fuel to the fire, if you'll pardon the pun? Why not hedge your bets and at least make a few concessions to current scientific research, such as getting on your bike occasionally, or even walking instead of roaring around in your gas guzzler? So, nice try, Malcolm, but surely this is all tongue-in-cheek, and an intelligent man like you can't possibly believe any of it. Respect.
Leave Floaty Be. This is a letter from Malvin Hurst of Ventnor. I must take issue with Malcolm Mime, County Press on the 6th of the 5th, 22, but not with his views on climate change, with which I have some sympathy. However, his advice to those threatened by rising sea levels simply to move will not go down well with the millions of Bangladeshi and many others who live in low-lying river deltas throughout the world. No, my concern is with his remarks on the floating bridge. I have not lived on the island for long enough to be familiar with the sorry story of these many failings. All I know is that last week, in travelling from St Mary's Hospital to the ferry terminal at East Cowes, I used the chain ferry and thought it £2.40 very well spent, saving me a long roundabout journey and resulting carbon emissions, which would otherwise have been necessary. So I say, long may the ferries stay in service.
School Term Argument Facts by Councillor Vanessa Churchman, who represents Haylands and Swanmore. Regarding the October 2-week half-term, the facts. The Conservative administration, after a very lengthy and well-received consultation on the October half-term, introduced a 2-week break in 2021. When the Alliance were elected in May 2021, they reversed the decision, but October 2021 still went ahead, as it takes a full year before alterations come into effect. However, the Alliance Cabinet changed the October break back to 1 week for this year, stating they had consulted, that consultation consisting of emailing the head teachers of most primary schools but not including anybody else. After a public outcry, they agreed a second consultation, goodness knows at what cost, and have now announced the original 2-week half-term will come into effect in October 2023. I find it unusual to make a claim that the Tories altered their own policy. Why would we? When the decision to return to 1 week was made after we lost control of the council in May last year. An inspection of cabinet papers will confirm the above information is correct.
We have now got to say goodbye to you.
So it's goodbye from Kate.
And it's goodbye from Mike. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Now, I would like to read you Self-Confidence in Touch. Self-confidence can be impacted by many factors when you have a visual impairment or when gradually losing your sight. We look into confidence through the lens of beauty and self-care products and psychology. Procter & Gamble own many household name brands within beauty, hair care and personal grooming. Their accessibility leader, Sam Latif, is blind, and she has introduced features to some of their big name products to make them more accessible to people who are blind or have low vision. We talked to her about these and how the wider beauty industry needs to become more accessible. But of course, self-confidence expands far wider than just self-care and beauty products. And so we talked to humanistic counsellor David Best about the kinds issues surrounding confidence that he hears about from his visually impaired clients.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, blindness, beauty and confidence. We talk to a visually impaired counsellor about how being blind can affect your self-esteem.
Somebody might assume that somebody that's completely blind might have less confidence or a lower self-esteem than somebody that's got relatively good eyesight, but that's often not the case at all.
More on that later. But first, applying beauty products such as skincare and hair care with little or no sight can be quite a challenge, to say the least. Issues like inaccessible packaging and websites can sometimes make selecting the right products pretty tough too. So, have blind people been ignored by the industry, or is there hope that attitudes towards accessibility are getting a makeover? Well, we decided to take a closer look. Emily Davison creates fashion and beauty content online where she's known under the name Fashionista. Here she is on her YouTube channel sharing some tricks on how to apply makeup when you're blind.
Now today I'm going to be using my beloved classic Naked palette. First of all, I'm going to take the outer crease brush. This is when I can't see what I'm doing, so I just have to go by feel. And what I would say for this one is that you start from the inner corner of your eye, but towards your nose, and then just blend it outwards.
One thing I would say with this is to be quite confident in knowing where your eyes are, just to make sure that you don't get any fallout afterwards.
Yes, I've had lots of fallouts after doing my makeup, but I'm not necessarily sure that I can blame my eyeshadow entirely for those. So, Emily, one view that we see quite often on social media is that some people say they don't understand why, if you're blind or visually impaired, you would want to use beauty products. What do you say to that?
I would say that the idea that beauty is just about how you look, I think is quite singular. You know, I think a lot of us also want to feel good about ourselves, and feeling good about ourselves encompasses lots of different things. And I also would say that a lot of people with visual impairments as well do want to present themselves well to the world. We all deserve to want to feel good about ourselves in life.
And how do you feel about going into stores to select beauty products as someone with a visual impairment?
I, to be honest, see it as a bit of a mission sometimes. I tend to go into stores. If I'm shopping on my own, it will only be if I know what I want, if I've had time to research it online and I've got an idea of what shades would look good on me, or if I've used something before and I'm just repurchasing it. Because often I think that going into store, there's so many colours, there's so much in the way of like products. There's not a lot in the way of accessible means to be able to shop independently, and it just becomes a bit of a minefield. And often, if I'm on my own, you will find me FaceTiming my mother and she's trying to say to me, pan around slowly and I'll tell you what to try on and stuff like that if I'm not with her.
So what are some of the main issues that you find in terms of accessibility of beauty products?
One of the main issues that I personally encounter a lot is, the packaging of products. So often the print is very small, the print is not a very kind of distinctive font. They're not very easy to read. The ingredients are very small to read. A lot of the time you won't find the means of being able to kind of quickly and easily find what you want, for example, with things like maybe a QR code or something like that. Also things like trying to sort of distinguish different shades. So often the packaging's the same. There's not anything to differentiate. Okay, well, this is a matte kind of lipstick. This is more of a shimmer. And it just becomes a bit meaningless when you've got bottles that are all the same shape, all the same colour, all the same kind of finish. I think it just makes me feel as a person, as a consumer, as a customer, that I don't count, that I don't have valid reasons to be made included, and it's not a nice feeling.
So what improvements would you like to see the industry make in this area?
I would like to see the industry focus on universal ways to be able to make their packaging and their products more accessible, with things like raised QR codes, with collaborating with brands like Navilens on making a more accessible shopping experience, and to just see more collaborative work with brands who are doing great things to make their products more accessible for everyone.
And speaking of brands, if someone from a beauty brand was listening now, what would you say to them about accessibility?
I would say there is such a huge percentage of people in the population who are disabled. 15% of the world's population have a disability. That's a huge demographic. The disability community is actually the largest minority group in the world, the largest. And yet I feel that we are the group that often doesn't get catered to enough for our variety of needs. I have been a blogger since 2012. I have seen improvements, but frankly, I haven't seen enough. And I think it's time for that to change.
Emily Davison there. Well, Emily, you're in luck, as we have somebody from one of the biggest brands in the world listening intently to what you've said. Sam Latif is the accessibility leader at Procter & Gamble, a multinational company whose brands include Gillette, Olay, Oral-B, Herbal Essences, Pantene, and so many more. Sam, I believe you've been with Procter & Gamble for over 20 years now in various guises. But tell us how your current role came about.
Good evening, everyone. So my current role came about 5 years ago. Previous to that, I was working in IT at Procter & Gamble. Like Emily was saying, I also felt that many of the products that I was using from P&G, they were not designed for someone like me. I'm also blind as well. And I realized that as a mum, as a woman who was highly interested in beauty care products, that the products that my company were creating were not inclusive for people like me, my community of people with disabilities. So I decided to bring this to the attention of the company through what I call the Disability Challenge. And I got people throughout the company, including senior leadership and eventually even the CEO, to experience what it was like to tell the difference between a shampoo and a conditioner bottle when you can't see properly. So I gave them glasses that would simulate sight loss, just to give them an understanding of the simple tasks that able-bodied people take for granted.
So what changes have you been able to make as accessibility leader?
What we have done is brought some products to market. So what Emily was saying earlier, it's really hard to distinguish what's in products. Bottles feel the same. So we're introducing a tactile language to help people identify, for example, shampoo from conditioner, because we're putting tactile symbols for shampoo, which happens to be 4 tactile stripes for shampoo, S for shampoo, S for stripes. And then we've got some tactile circles for conditioner. And so as we're creating new products of shampoo and conditioner, we will be building in the tactile stripes and circles. One of the examples that I'm really proud of at the moment is on our Pantene Miracles brand. We have introduced Navi Lens on the product, which means that people will be able to go into the store and the blind person will be guided. So it will say left, right, up, down. And when you're exactly in range of the product, it will start going beep, 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 and help you find and lift the product off the shelf independently, which is absolutely fantastic. For the same initiative, we are making sure that our advertising is accessible with audio description and captioning. And finally, the icing on the cake is that our brand ambassador is blind herself.
Hi, I'm Lucy Edwards. Being blind means that I see through touch. When my hair feels straw-like and it makes that annoying sound, it really gets to me, because great hair is not just about how it looks to the world, it's how it feels to me. Pantene, proud partners of Navi Lens, empowering the vision impaired.
Well, that all sounds like really great news from an accessibility point of view, but won't these things add to the cost of your products?
Well, first of all, some of these things, if we do it right, then it shouldn't add too much cost. And secondly, the cost outweighs the number of people that we'll be serving. It's only when you try to retrospectively go back and fix something, that's when the high costs come along. So if you're smart about accessibility, bake it in from the beginning.
You're obviously a huge beauty lover yourself, Sam. Do you use any kind of tech to assist in your beauty routine, or even just to select the products you're buying in the first place?
Oh, yes, I use a lot of tech, but I use a lot of people as well. I call them my talking mirrors. Like Emily was talking about her mum. I also have my sister, my cousins, like trusted advisors who make sure to pick out the right colours, etc. for me. I also use apps like, Be My Eyes or Aira, who can actually help to connect me to a human being on the other side of a phone through a video call and help me, confirm that my makeup's on okay. Technology has really helped to make me more independent and confident with my beauty regime.
And finally, Sam, what more do you think needs to be done either within or outside the industry to make beauty products more accessible?
I think the beauty industry needs to wake up and recognise that today the industry is not accessible. From what I see when I speak externally, when I meet other people from the industry, they've realised that, oh my God, we had unintentionally excluded this community. We didn't know, but now people are waking up and taking account and actually acting to make products more accessible.
Sam Latif from Procter & Gamble, thank you very much indeed. Now, the use of beauty products can be one way of boosting our confidence, but what other factors can affect confidence if you're visually impaired? Well, someone well placed to answer that question is David Best. David, who's visually impaired himself, has an honours degree in humanistic counselling and has provided counselling support to blind and visually impaired people for over 20 years. I spoke to him about the kinds of issues surrounding confidence that he commonly hears about from his visually impaired clients.
I guess it depends on the age group. Confidence is about their belief in their ability to do something or not do something. And so with children, the typical kinds of things will be how they view themselves in relation to other people. They might at some stage realise that they can't do something as well as other people can. And so they then might feel left out. So that can really have an impact on their self-esteem. One of the most common difficulties, I think, especially young people have sort of emotionally, is the challenge of, do I make it visible to other people that I'm visually impaired? Obviously, having a white cane, whether it's a symbol cane or a long cane, they can really, really help in a practical way. But the other side of that is that the person using it will often worry about how other people see them. And this is something that I went through myself, and it took me years and years. I mean, I used to worry so much about people looking at me. And the reality is that people do look at other people, but after a second, they've forgotten. If you're walking down the road and you really do need a cane, and you haven't got one because you're worried, and then you walk into a lamppost, or you go to open a shop door, which is something I commonly used to do. I'll be feeling around the glass trying to find the door, and people are looking at me thinking, wow, that's a strange guy, what's he doing? It really is embarrassing. But if you've got a cane, people immediately see the cane and go, oh, okay, that's why. Another thing that I commonly do is if I, walk into a room and there's people in there, even if I know them, I can't see who they are unless I hear them speak. I'll never know. And I've made so many mistakes before, thinking I'm talking to somebody I'm not. There's countless small things like that you encounter every day that can really have a negative effect on you, things that people wouldn't even think about.
Do you think some people might feel that they need to overcompensate for their visual impairment in other ways in an attempt to make themselves more valued by others?
Yeah, that can be in terms of people's attitude, or it could be in terms of their physical appearance. I mean, people pleasing is something that's very common, and perfectionism, and perfectionism is such a barrier, so if you have false expectations of yourself or other people, then there's so much room for disappointment. One of the things I try to do in my work is encourage people to include themselves more, because a lot of people, especially when they doubt themselves, they wait for other people to do things or include them or invite them. Actually, you have to kind of count yourself in, you have to include yourself, learn how to do that, and that can be really quite difficult to do. The visual world, there are lots of cues that people respond to, so just even things like eye contact, body language, very subtle things people that are visual will pick up on, and it's easier to know how to include yourself, I suppose, in that sense. It takes a lot of courage.
In what ways might sudden sight loss affect a person's sense of identity and in turn their confidence?
Well, I guess if you're born with a visual impairment, you don't necessarily know any different from it. I mean, obviously people have visual impairments that get progressively worse, but again, often there's the ability to adjust as a situation changes, even though that's not easy for most people. But somebody who all of a sudden loses their sight, even if it's expected, that's a massive shock. There's no amount of preparation, really. Having said that, with support and with encouraging people around and with time, people largely can recover from those things and actually find a new identity. And I think the fear of the unknown is the thing that really gets people, especially initially. How am I going to cope without my sight?
As blind people, at some point, we are likely to find ourselves in situations such as access refusals or needing special accommodations where we will need confidence to speak up for ourselves. Do you have any practical strategies or tips to help in that kind of scenario?
Well, I think we tend to ask for permission. I would say it's about taking control of a situation and being as assertive as possible, saying, this is what I need, rather than can I have, or would it be possible if. I mean, obviously it's polite to ask in certain kinds of ways. Take control the best you can of a situation. A bit like using a guide dog or white cane thing. By using it, you're taking control, you're owning the situation. One of the things that comes up for people often is the issue of dependence and independence. And I used to think that to be independent meant I had to do everything on my own. And so an example would be I'd go into a shop and I'd be spending ages in there squinting over all of the different products, and then I'd be getting more and more frustrated. Eventually I'd go and ask and say, oh, can you help me please? I'm visually impaired. And then what I realised in the end is, do you know what? The best thing to do is go in the shop, go straight up to the shop assistant and say, can you help me please? I'm visually impaired. This is what I'm after. You're taking control and you are asking for help, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And in fact, recognizing your limitation and knowing when to ask is all part of being independent. It builds up your confidence and your self-esteem.
So what would you say to someone, David, who feels that their visual impairment has had an impact on their confidence? What words of advice can you give them?
Well, I think, it's really important to acknowledge the emotional impact. Sometimes you have to go through a situation to come out the other side of it and feel stronger. A lot of people don't like to have a cry, for instance, or they think there's something wrong with feeling angry, but there's nothing wrong with crying or feeling angry. It's a really valid and important emotion that we have. I would encourage people to talk. A lot of people, they don't feel they can share with their close friends or family members because they don't want to burden them, or they don't want them to feel guilty. For example, a child might not want to talk to their parent about their visual impairment and how it feels, because they don't want the parent to feel burdened or to blame themselves for it. So they keep it to themselves. So get all your thoughts and feelings out in the open and explore them and make sense of them. Everyone has their own story, but putting it out there, letting other people know that, yeah, there are people that are different, but it doesn't make them less or more important than anybody else. It's great that visually impaired people, for example, can talk to other visually impaired people who will understand. But if we don't talk to other people, how are they going to understand? Somebody might assume that somebody that's completely blind might have less confidence or a lower self-esteem than somebody that's got relatively good eyesight, but that's often not the case at all.
That was David Best. And that's it for today. We'd love to hear your experiences relating to what you've heard on tonight's programme. How has visual impairment affected your confidence? You can email us intouch@bbc.co.uk, leave your voicemails on 0161 836 1338. From me, Fern Lulham, producer Beth Hemmings, and studio managers Carwyn Griffith and Philip Halliwell, goodbye.
We start with scaffolding and skip news for the week commencing the 16th of May 2022. Newport, the Old Mill, St Cross Lane, Newport Minster, St Thomas's Square, 11 Lower St James's Street, Exchange House, St Cross Lane. Ryde, the Crown Inn Pub, St Thomas's Square and the High Street, 24B, Union Street, Friends of the Animals, High Street, Garfield Road, 21A and 22A, Cross Street. Ryde Skips, 21A, 22A, Cross Street. Sea View, Warren Boats, Blewett Avenue, Villa Marguerite, High Street, Sea View.
Brading, 74 and 76 Lower Furlongs, 65 High Street. Sandown, 20 High Street. Shanklin, Sunny Bay Flats, 2 Alexandra Road, Post House, High Street. And Shanklin Skips, 1 Wilton Road.
Cowes, Old NatWest Bank, 104 High Street. Jersey Cottage, Market Hill, Sunhill. Cowes Skips, Ivy Dean, Princes Street, 63 Moor Green Road. Ventnor, 2 High Street. Central Hotel, High Street, Market Street, 24 Spring Hill. And Freshwater area, Meadow Barn, Western Road, Tottenham.